Well, welcome back to the Valley Hoops Insider podcast, part of the Valley Hoops Insider website. I'm Harry Schrader. That's Lyndal Scranton there, just to the side of me, whichever way this computer makes it show up on your computer screen. He is a writer. He's a well-known historian, writer, etc., or all around Missouri State's athletics, and we're talking about basketball, of course, today. Works currently with the Springfield Daily Citizen, right? I got it right, Lyndal, correct?
That is correct, Harry. Yeah,
and longtime reporter though on these issues and on the whole Missouri Valley scene. And Lyndal, first, just thanks for carving out time for us today. Important times for the Missouri State basketball program, correct? I feel like it's really at a pivotal time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a critical hire. They need to find the right guy here at the right time. Apathy is set into the program after a decade of pretty mediocre basketball, and it's at the point now the attendance is at an all-time low as a Division I school going back to 1982. So yeah, it's a very critical time.
I thought that comparing and contrasting, I thought that at Southern Illinois, they've been similar in terms of their wins and losses over the last X amount of years, but their attendance was growing. And so I was surprised when they let Brian Mullins go. Wasn't happy that they let him go. I wasn't surprised they let Dana Ford go. I was unhappy that they did, meaning I like both of those gentlemen. Before we talk about what's coming up, what do you think were the hindrances to the Dana Ford era there in Springfield?
Dana had good teams. He just couldn't get over the hump and have the great teams. You need to finally break through and get to an NCAA tournament. 2022, they made it to the NIT. Well, of course, lost that heartbreaker in the semifinals of Arch Madness to Drake. And that was really the high point. Last 2 years, 16 wins, 17 wins, couldn't quite get over the hump. And 6 years into the tenure, and I don't know, the community just never seemed to warm up to Dana as a program. Even in the 2022 season, the attendance wasn't there. I think he maybe paid the price for the mediocrity of his predecessor, Paul Lusk. It didn't go well during his era, and Dana was at times early. The fans seemed to rally around him, but it just never went where it needed to.
And such a great guy and involved in the community and his Bears and Badges program and his rebound program that he and his wife did. I mean, super involved and his heart in the right place and really trying to do the right things. But wins and losses, fan apathy, I think is the word you used, was his demise. And now Kyle Moats and the administration there I think they have to come up with a home run hire. And we're hearing from all corners that it's going to be Cuonzo Martin. And I wonder if that's the kind of hire. First, I want to talk about from the fan standpoint. Are the fans going to be thrilled and excited about Cuonzo Martin?
I've seen mixed reactions on social media for what you can take that for. Social media, so a lot of people are really for it. Some are really against it, but at least people seem to be caring. I mean, they're taking a stance on it, so that shows a bit of positive news there. At least this is a guy who has proven he can win at Missouri State. The only coach in the school's history in the Valley, 34 years to win a regular season championship. So, and he left here after 3 years, and a lot of people are bitter that they would bring back a guy who left. But he's coming back, perhaps a better coach than he was when he left, coaching 3 major programs. He's taken the last couple of years off. That's, some people think that's maybe a little bit of a concern, but I don't really see it that way. I think maybe he re-energized his batteries a little bit by being out of it the last couple of years.
I should have asked you this at the beginning. How long for you covering sports there in the Springfield area, in the Ozark area?
Well, I go back to 1979 when I started as a clerk at the Springfield News Leader. So I was 36 years in the business at the News Leader, and took a buyout from the parent company late in 2015. I was kind of on the sidelines for about 6 years. I kept following the program, but when the Daily Citizen, a nonprofit digital news operation, all local news, came to be 2 years ago in February 2022, I had an opportunity to do a couple of sports stories a week for them. So I'm kind of a hired gun, a freelance reporter, you might say, one of my endeavors these days is covering local sports on a part-time basis for the Daily Citizen, and Missouri State, of course, is really considered our major beat.
And it's so good to have you back involved. What I mean is, I love, that there are beat writers and all of that in different cities. A lot of the cities don't have beat writers at all, but they're in Springfield. Both you and the news leader with Wyatt, you guys are paying attention and writing the stories, and I think it makes the program better, the community better. I think it makes the Valley better to have Lyndal Scranton back involved.
Well, thanks, Harry. I appreciate that. It's fun to be back involved, even on a small scale. Wyatt's he's a workaholic. He does a tremendous job. He's a one-man band, whereas we used to have at our peak we had 9 sports reporters at the news leader, and even when I left, we still had 3. But I've talked with him, and I don't think we really see ourselves as competitors. I try to supplement what he does. He's the nuts and bolts guy, and I kind of jump in and do some analysis and do some feature writing and do a weekly column. And I think it plays off each other. Our operation and his play off each other quite well.
So going back to this coaching situation, and it seems like it's going to be Cuonzo Martin. I mean, those famous people, when they say that stuff, they're almost always right. I mean, you can count on one hand how many times some of those national guys have come out and said, well, it's going to be so-and-so, and then it isn't. So just assuming it's Cuonzo, we talked about the fan reaction. Your thoughts, your memories of the times, the 3 years that he was there. 50 wins over the last 2 years. They do win the regular season title in 2011, I think it was. And in 2010, they win the CIT championship, or was it the NIT? I guess it was the CIT.
CIT,
And but talk about the kinds of teams he had and what you liked about his coaching prowess in those days.
Well, the number one emphasis with Cuonzo is toughness. His teams will be tough, no questions asked. They maybe won't play the prettiest offense in the world, but they're going to be tough. They're going to get the ball inside. They're going to get to the free throw line. Defensively, they're going to play hard. He wants loyalty from his players, from his coaching staff. He demands that. I saw a lot of improvement in him as a coach over 3 years. He inherited a kind of a mismatch of a roster his first year and lost 20 games, but you could tell he had him going in the right direction. Brought in some guys from the JUCO ranks to really fill gaps, and had them to the point where they won 50 games over his last 2 years here. So I think there's a lot of positives to look at on what he did here the first go around.
And Kyle Williams wasn't too bad during those years.
Kyle Williams was a pretty good guy to inherit. I have to give Barry Hinson a lot of credit for this. He not only recruited Kyle, but he insisted Kyle redshirt in Barry's final season when Barry had a pretty good idea that it was going to be his last go, and he could have easily pulled that redshirt off of Kyle or asked Kyle if he would consider doing that. But to Barry's credit, Kyle redshirted that year and came into the league and was an impact player from his freshman year for under Cuonzo his first year.
So he has a great career, a great couple of years there. They have 2 terrific years, and then he takes off. Cuonzo took off for Tennessee, was there 3 years, Cal for 3 years, and then 5 years at the University of Missouri. And obviously things didn't play out tremendously in Columbia for Cuonzo, but he took each one of those programs to the NCAA tournament. And we might say, well, they were power conference teams. Of course, they were going to get in once in a while. But the ability to get a team to that next level is really what this is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the situation at Cal. That was in a power conference, but that's not a power team,
right?
Not a power program. But he was able to take Cal to places that I don't know that they've been back to the tournament since he left. So good job there. And he moves to Mizzou. I thought that was a perfect fit at Mizzou.
I did too.
And, it was going well, and then it didn't go well at the end. And the new AD came in and the attendance fell off. And, it's kind of a perfect storm. You look at the attendance across the country has fallen dramatically, and you have the streaming TV and you have all the entertainment options out there. And if you give the fans any reason not to come, these days, they're probably not going to come. So I think he was just swallowed up in that at Mizzou his final year, and it just went awry. And here we are today, and he's apparently headed back into the business, and probably a hungry guy. I know how competitive he is. Cuonzo has been competitive his entire life, from growing up in East St. Louis till till I guess today, and I think he's ready to get back in it and give it a go.
Well, I raised this question in the article I produced earlier today about, is he the right fit and all that kind of thing. And I think he is. I think he's a tremendous coach. But the game has changed even in the 2 years since he left, related to what I call the portal pandemic, the combination of the NIL, the running rampant NIL, as well as the free agency. I can transfer anytime I want kind of issues, player movement issues. It's a different game now, and how equipped. Maybe we have no way of knowing, but talk about your confidence in his ability, his being equipped to navigate these changing times in college basketball.
Yeah, certainly it is changing times. Even since last summer, when I guess the courts ruled that guys could transfer multiple times, not
Right.
have to sit out. That's really been the biggest game changer of all. So it is a wild card. I think he brought in some JUCO recruits and some D1 transfers his first go here that worked out well, and I'm sure he's still well connected, and if not ever, maybe better than he was the first time around the nation with his recruiting contacts. And the NIL thing is probably a bigger concern. Can a school like Missouri State or schools in the Missouri Valley Conference take a guy like NJ Benson, for instance? He'd be a perfect guy here. I think he'd flourish under Cuonzo as an inside player. But will a school from a Mountain West Conference or a Big Ten come in? And we've seen it before where guys get the NIL money and they move, and schools like Missouri State can't compete in the NIL's part of it.
So that's the next kind of part of the question is, how is Missouri State situated in terms of its ability to whoever they want to compete with, in terms of their NIL collective or opportunities in Springfield for the players to endorse car dealerships or whatever? How is that? How is Bears athletics kind of situated to at least to have a run at some of these players?
Well, I think there are some major potential donors, some big companies that are based here in Springfield. You look at Bass Pro Shops, O'Reilly Automotive, are two that come to mind that are major companies on the world scale. And a guy like Cuonzo, I think he has the personality and the charisma that he can go out and meet and greet and talk to people and talk to donors and maybe get them excited. Maybe he can meet some of these people that run these companies or in roles of influence. Maybe he can generate some of this NIL where the couple of previous coaches haven't been able to do so. I think it's more than being a basketball coach now. You have to sell your program and you have to go out and do it yourself. You can't just rely on your a school like Missouri State doesn't have a guy just go out and sell or generate NIL money. You have to be your own best salesman, I guess, so to speak, as a head coach these days.
When I think about all of this going on in that arena, the collectives that the different universities or people around the universities have started, I don't even know the technicalities of it in that regard, and the NIL money and the players being able to leave anytime they want. It is a radically different game, and I think Cuonzo is the kind of guy that players will begrudgingly love playing for. What I mean is he's tough, but I think they end up really respecting and revering him in some way. I think that part will be the easy part, if I can say it. But the financial part, I mean, I could like you a lot, Lyndal, but if somebody offers me $50,000 extra, I might like them better.
Oh, I hear that, absolutely. But you're right about the players will love him if they are able to get to know his style. I remember his first year here, Kyle Weems, I thought wasn't going to make it through the first couple of practices. I sat into those early practices, and it was the most grueling that I had seen in a long time for a Missouri State basketball program. But Kyle stuck it out, and so did several others. And I messaged with Kyle yesterday about when this news broke, and he absolutely loves the guy, and so do we've seen Will Creekmore and Adam Leonard and Nafis Ricks, other starters from that team who have come out on social media. They're just thrilled by this move. So guys, he does have a genuine love for his players, but he is tough on them. There's no question about that.
Well, you're throwing out those names. I'm just having flashbacks. I'm remembering those guys and how they played. That's super interesting. So the community responding maybe mixed, maybe more than 50% are for it, but they're mixed. We think there are great challenges for the Missouri Valley Conference right now. I just posted something earlier today. Out of the 16 players that were on the all conference teams, 10 of them are gone, 3 by graduation. One has committed to stick around, and 5 are still playing at Indiana State right now. So those are the only ones still in the league, or the 5 playing at Indiana State and the 1 at Bradley that is committed. Uh, 20 plus, maybe 25, 26 years I've been around the league. I feel like this is the time when the league is most at risk in terms of the struggles weighed against it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, what a time we were living in here. I mean, who thought college athletics would look like this? But it's a high risk, high reward league right now in the Valley.
Hmm.
I think you can go either way, but there's an opportunity there for for the right coach to come in, and if he's able to make the right connections and bring in players, you can use the portal one of two ways. You can whine about it and use it as a negative, or you can look at it as a positive as a mid major and go out and try to find the right guys who are looking for an opportunity that maybe they're not getting at an Arkansas or Arizona or some major school. If you bring the right guys in, and you could go from an eighth place team to a title contender in 1 year. You know, no longer do you have to take 3 to 4 years to build your program. If you hit your marks and recruiting and the portal guys, you could become an immediate contender. I think in this day and age.
Yeah, I think the same thing, Lyndall. I think that there's a downside, right? There's the loyalty thing, the fans, being engaged with players, knowing the players, all those kinds of things. But right now, there's going to be 4 or 5 new coaches in the Missouri Valley Conference this year. We're all kind of guessing that Josh Schertz will leave Indiana State after their NIT play is over. That would make 5 new head coaches, only 7 left over. And if you think about that, really only Brian Wardle and Ben Jacobson at Northern Iowa have been at their posts any kind of time period at all. It is a brand new league. And as you say, a great opportunity for upward mobility if you're one of those teams that have been struggling in the middle or in the bottom. The fact that Valparaiso, they have their 2 leading scorers coming back. They might be the favorites right now after being like the last place team this past year. It's a crazy time in the Missouri Valley Conference.
Yeah, Valpo's doing it right. Their top players have said they're coming back. They sent a strong signal by signing Roger Powell to an extension. I think that was a great move. So, yeah, it's a good opportunity. I think the Valley needs to quit looking at this as a negative in this transfer portal world and try to turn it into a positive if at all possible.
I want to take you back to Missouri State. When I think about the Bears, and I've said this for years and years now, that the Missouri State athletic program, and obviously I'm basketball centric, I think the Bears ought to be the beast in this league. It's the biggest school in the Valley with, outside of Chicago, it's probably the biggest city, or maybe third, maybe it's behind Des Moines in terms of people in its geographic area. They seem to have those corporate people around the region that might want to be a part. I think Missouri State ought to become the new Wichita State in the conference. And I wonder what has hindered it for the last 25 years since they've done some damage in the NCAA tournament, and 35 years their whole time in the Valley.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you. I know that there is some question about the school's financial commitment to the basketball program specifically. You look at the attendance for Dana Ford. It's hard to say with private schools because you don't quite have that information available, but they're somewhere in the middle to 7th or 8th in the league, maybe in the coaching salaries. Total budget for basketball is somewhere in the middle of the league. Some people would say you need to bump that up and be at the top of the league. Missouri State's always been a believer in trying to make all its programs competitive, whether it's an Olympic sport all the way up to men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. So it's always that thing. It's a tough deal in this day and age with budget limitations. How do you spread your money? But that's where it comes down to hopefully tapping into those corporate resources on a local level if you can.
Yeah, I just think it's ripe to be a big time program. I just saw though that India Green is leaving the women's program. I'm ticked, and because I started paying attention to the Lady Bears and all of the women's side of the Missouri Valley this year as well. And I always want everybody to stay home. I'm a traditional guy. I want everybody to just stay home, stay connected. But man, money does talk, and it's real. I mean, these young men and ladies have the freedom to do that and look for a situation that might be better for them. We keep hearing that Cuonzo is going to sign. Do you have any idea about how soon that will take place?
I don't specifically, just common, thinking common sense wise, you would think within the next day or two, it would, if a thing breaks nationally from a well respected source, you would think there it would be real close. And because of the timeliness of it, needing to get some roster construction going, you would think that it would be sooner than later. I know Cuonzo's son is a bench player for Purdue, and the Boilermakers play Friday night in Detroit in the Sweet 16. So I'm sure he would probably like to be there. He's attended most of Purdue's games this year just as a fan. So I would think I wouldn't be surprised by this time tomorrow if something is announced and we're going to have a press conference. Sooner the better for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I would think so too, for a number of reasons, right? You want to start building that roster. You want to start building a coaching staff, and you can do that at an NCAA regional or the NCAA Final Four. You can network with people and find different people that are, available also at that time. And I don't know, is his son good enough to come be a star at Missouri State? Maybe we get a package deal out of all this.
Yeah, I think he's close to the end of his eligibility. He's listed as a senior, but you look at the portal guys who have gone in. Most everyone of Missouri State's gone in. Doesn't mean that necessarily that they're going to leave. They most likely will, but you have guys like an NJ Benson and Alston Mason, Damian Mayo Jr. To me, would be he couldn't draw up a better Cuonzo Martin player than Damian Mayo Jr. This kid is
true.
Just an absolute hard-nosed, blue-collar junkyard dog type of player, and he would thrive under Cuonzo Martin if he stayed.
Well, I have high hopes for Cuonzo Martin. Really liked him when he was in the league before, and obviously he's from around my neighborhood, so I'm pulling for Cuonzo. Appreciate your time today. Just wanted to get insight, local flavor about what's going on there, and man, I just want the Bears to be great. I want the league to be great, and I think for the league to be great, Missouri State has to be great. That's just kind of a math equation I've always had in the back of my mind because I believe it's such a central kind of a place, close to St. Louis as well. When I think about Arch Madness, I do want to ask you one last thing. Is there a team in the league now that would be the Missouri State rival? Is there a team like that now?
Southern Illinois or Northern Iowa, I think, would be the closest that you would come. Southern Illinois, from geographic purposes, is probably the closest one now. That was a good rivalry for a long time. You go back to the Rich Hare and Charlie Spoonhour days when the Bears joined the league.
That makes sense.
That was a great rivalry. And, of course, when Ken Williams played with the Salukis and the various coaches, starting with Bruce Weber, playing against Barry Hinson's good Bears teams, they had some classic games. Northern Iowa goes back to the Mid-Continent Conference days, and that's been the Bears' biggest nemesis over the last decade, the inability to beat Northern Iowa. And, if you take if you flip what Northern Iowa and the Bears' results have been over the last 6 years, Dana Ford would still be the head coach. He was 2-10 against Northern Iowa.
Wow.
And losses to the Panthers kicked off both of the Bears' bad stretches this season. So that Northern Iowa's been the real thorn in the side.
See, I didn't know that. That's why I had you on. I have people on so that I can learn. I appreciate stuff like that. Lyndal, appreciate your time today. Wish you all the best. So glad you're back covering the Bears for us, and we can tap into your knowledge and your insight about what's going on in Springfield.
Harry, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Appreciate it all the time. That's Lyndal Scranton. Check out his work at the Springfield Daily Citizen. It is, I wrote it down, sgcitizen.org. Go there and read his stuff about the Bears and other things going on in the Springfield area of sports. Do you ever talk barbecue on that paper?
Not a lot in the Citizen.
Because you're a barbecue like master, right?
Well, yeah, I'll just plug my barbecue podcast here if you don't mind real quick.
No, that's why I brought it up.
Tailgate Guys BBQ is the handle. Tailgate Guys BBQ podcast on all the major barbecue podcast platforms.
Who knew there were major barbecue podcast platforms?
Well, yeah, just you go to your Apple iTunes or Spotify or anywhere, and just go Tailgate Guys BBQ.
And I would learn how to cook it or eat it, or what would I do there?
We have a lot of experts on the show talking about how to cook it better, and we have a lot of the professionals on the circuit. I was going to say, doing this barbecue thing competitively has been not only a lot of fun, but our net rating is really high in competition barbecue. The Tailgate Guys are a top 25 team in strength of schedule. We only play against the best in the world. This past weekend in St. Robert, Missouri, 4 of the nation's top 20 teams were there, and we were competing against.
Come
We beat
on.
some of them in the pork category. So we already have some quad 1 wins this season in pork. So.
I love that. That's hilarious. I'm going to have to get down to Springfield and eat some of your stuff. That's bottom line what needs to happen now.
Absolutely.
That's Lyndal Scranton. Appreciate your time today. Appreciate you folks tuning into the podcast today. Remember, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.